can change the cameras with that.
No, this is what's showing. This is just like a anonymous version. So you could fix things in there.
So this is what's actually showing. It's like what's in there.
Yeah, I'll have to go over it.
Let's see that.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone, to our View with Your Family cooking class. My name is Sharina. I would like to welcome you all here. It's so good to see everyone. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your weekends to come visit us. We have some recipes in store for you that can not only help you nourish your family, but also give you some time to help your young ones get a little bit more confidence in the kitchen, a little bit more independence and ability to know what they are doing when it comes to food and cooking. So there are just a few things that I wanted to go over really quickly. In case you didn't notice, we have the exit over here in the back. If you need to use the restroom at any point, there are two exits over here in the back on the left and the right. If you ever need to use the restroom, it's just through these doors. The women's restroom is the first one, and then on the other side of the water fountain is the men's restroom. And of course, if you have any questions for any of the recipes, feel free to go ahead and ask the presenter when they're done with their demo, or you can save them towards the end. Either one is fine, because we will have a section at the end if you have any questions. And what Anna is doing right now is passing out a hard copy of all of the recipes that we'll be covering today. So if you wanted to know how to replicate them, or if you wanted to pass the information along, you'll have that info readily available to you. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to do is actually invite our pastor, Pastor John Porosky, up here for an opening prayer. Pastor?
Since we are a Christian church and we believe that Christ came to redeem the spirit, soul, and the body, we are also taking care of our bodies, and we also want to give Him glory and thanks. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity, for another day that we are breathing, that we are alive, that we are created in your image. And I'm also thankful, Lord, for this opportunity that we can be here, that we can learn some things about the healthy food, and that we can also take care of our bodies because you came to redeem our bodies. I pray that it will be a good time, and that the learning, that you will give us strength, that all the things that we learn, that we can be able to implement in our lives. Thank you. In the name of Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, before we get into the cooking demos, I did want to go over a quick, neat little acronym with you all. It's kind of part of the philosophy that really encapsulates some of the health principles that we're trying to promote here. And the abbreviation is called New Start. And we do have some slides so that our friends here in person and our friends who are online and seeing us through their screens can see the information too. So let's talk a little bit about New Start. And if you do want to find more information about it, you can go to newstart.com. There's a lot more information than I'll be able to give you, but I'll just run down a quick process through each letter with you. So the very first letter that we have in New Start is nutrition. And you've probably heard this wherever you go, you need to have a very balanced whole food diet. And the reason for that is because we see that that's one of the healthiest diets that you can model and incorporate in your life. When you have fruits, when you have vegetables, legumes, or nuts and seeds, it gives you the chance to not only get one good food group in, but as many as possible. And another thing about nutrition to understand is it's not just what you eat, but it's also when you eat. One of the healthier eating patterns to establish is eating at mealtime and trying to avoid snacking in between. It gives you a little bit more, emotional independence from just mindlessly eating and being intentional about it, but it also gives your digestive system, your stomach, a break. Everything needs to rest at some point, and our stomach is included in that. So try to give it a rest every now and then and space your meals out to about 5 to 6 hours apart. And then there is a note at the bottom saying that raw salads can help aid with digestion at about every meal. I know some people, they like to eat salads right away in the morning. Some people, it's kind of more so towards the lunch or dinner portion, but trying to incorporate more of those, especially the leafy greens, is really good. It has a lot of minerals and vitamins as well as antioxidants to help nourish your body. The next letter that we have in New Start is exercise. And exercise, depending on how much you love it, you may or may not enjoy that word, but exercise can really be good for you physically and emotionally. We see that exercise, and the recommended guidelines being about 75 or 150 minutes of moderate activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity every week, or some sort of combination of the two, can really aid in several areas physically. You can improve your cardiovascular strength, your muscular strength. You can improve your resting heart rate, which means that your heart is working more efficiently, circulating the oxygen in the blood throughout your body. And then we also see that as a result of making sure that you're physically capable of maintaining your body, you'll be able to see some changes, maybe in obesity, maybe in blood pressure, cholesterol levels, but also in some more unseen symptoms, such as maybe anxiety or a lot of depression, a lack of self-esteem, or any other depressive symptoms or stress in general. And it can also improve your sense of self-worth. When you're done with something, whether you just ran a mile for the first time in your life or you bench pressed a weight you never thought you could, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment. And that can go a really long way in helping you be a better you the next day. The next letter that we have in New Start is W, which means water. Now, water is our friend. It's good to incorporate water in the body because that's the liquid fuel that your body uses to hydrate its systems and also to flush out toxins that your body wants to get rid of. Technically, the science behind how much water you need is very individual. What I may need is not necessarily what someone who's taller or shorter than me may need, but typically the recommendation is 6 to 8 glasses of water, a glass being about 8 ounces or 8 fluid ounces of water. So trying to get in enough to make sure that you are properly hydrated is a good way to make sure that you are also properly fueled yourself. And there are also some tips in terms of, how do I flush out my system on a good basis? One of them could be just drinking 2 to 3 glasses of water in the morning, especially if it's warm, so your body doesn't have to work too hard to make the cold water the room temperature, the body temperature it needs to process it. But that can also help to make sure that all the toxins that your body wants to get rid of, it's processing overnight, can indeed actually leave the system. And we do have a video on our YouTube channel, Elmhurst SDA, and it's called Hydrotherapy. It was led by Dr. Eddie Ramirez, who focuses a lot on health research and practical pieces of information. So if you want to find that, you'll have to search on our YouTube channel for COVID-19, the new normal. It was done May 30th of last year. The next letter in New Start is sun. Now, sun is very important, and we probably understand this after, 60% of the year not really being all that sunny. We have the sun coming out now. But sunlight, when taken in moderation, depending on how sensitive you are to exposure to direct sunlight, can be really good for you in terms of getting your vitamin D in. Also in terms of making you feel a little bit more happy. You may have noticed, especially if you are very sensitive like myself to the lack of sun, you'll notice you get a little bit more on the downside when you don't have enough sun. And so the general healing properties that it has, in addition to vitamin D and getting enough, is that it can also help you with calcium absorption and making sure that your bones are strong. It can also help to destroy certain bacteria and viruses, not all of them, but a good portion of them, as well as foster quality mental health.
And like I mentioned earlier, it's in terms of how much sun you need, the recommendation is about a half hour every day if you can. It might be a little bit more difficult for those of us who live in a cloudier area. But nonetheless, if you can get about that much every day, fantastic. Don't forget to put on your sunblock, especially if you notice that you burn a little too easily. But make sure you limit your exposure based off of your individual sensitivity. Now, the next letter in our New Start, and I have to remember, what is the first T? You'd think I would remember all of the letters because I'm the one who made the slides. But the next T, if you can go to the next slide for me, please, is temperance. And so what we mean by temperance is making sure that everything comes in moderation. You want to obtain as much of the good that you can and then avoid the bad that you can. So, every now and then a muffin isn't going to be too harmful, but only in moderation. If that's all that you're eating, then that's not a balanced and whole food diet, right? And we do have this quote from How to Live. We don't have that specific book in the physical copies back there that you can grab on your way out, but you can look it up on Google. I'm not sure which site would be most helpful, but this quote says, "In order to preserve health, temperance in all things is necessary. Temperance in labor, temperance in eating and drinking." So making sure that you eat when your body needs the fuel and that you get enough water, but also that you give your body rest. You don't want to overwork yourselves. You've probably felt how down and how ragged you feel when you don't have enough rest. So temperance just not for your diet, but also for you and your energy and your time. And then our next letter in New Start is air. And we may have felt this, especially with being indoors for so long, for almost a year. For some of us, it's been a lot of consecutive days indoors. But it's really good to try and expose yourself to clean air when you can. If you live downtown in a very air-congested area, it may or may not be a little bit difficult for you, but if you can, when feasible, try to spend as much time outdoors as you can. Try to ventilate your windows or the indoor spaces as much as you can as well, because the stale air needs to be able to circulate. You don't want to just stay in the same kind of air for very long, right? Because then all of the everything that you are breathing out needs to be able to get out of your space as well. So try to ventilate your windows when you can. I don't recommend it when it's a blizzard or when it's 30 degrees, but hey, if it works for you, then it works for you. And then our next letter in New Start is rest, R for rest. And like I briefly mentioned earlier, it's really good for your body to rest. Everything was made to rest, whether it is something that we created like a car or whether it's us as people. We can't just keep going. We have to be able to take a day off. Sometimes, especially during really difficult weeks, we may need 2 or 3 days off, or we may just want to take the whole week off from work if that's what we want, if that's what we can do, of course. But it's always good to take rest. It's always good to make sure that you have a good amount of quality sleep. So, not a lot of tossing and turning sleep where you're not really getting into your REM cycle, but making sure that you have about 7 to 9 quality hours of sleep. And going to bed about 9 o'clock, I'm very bad at that, to be quite honest. But going to bed on the earlier side around 9 o'clock can help you wake up more easily, kind of, going down with the sun and then coming up with the sun. It can be a bit more natural for your body. And, there are some times, especially when we're a bit more physically capable, we can just keep on going on 5 or 6 hours of sleep. But that's not very good for us in the long run. We may be able to sustain it for a little bit, but what's really optimal for your body to make sure that it's always kept in the best possible shape is to make sure that you do indeed get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then proper rest habits, just to let you know, they do contribute to physical and scene benefits. Improve quality of life, improve mental state of well-being. It allows the body to replenish its systems, and especially if anyone does like to work out or they like to weightlift or anything along those lines, rest is that when you're asleep, that's when your muscles are able to recover. So it's very, very important, practically speaking as well, to make sure your body rests and that you give that time to yourself too. And then the last letter that we have in New Start is trust, and specifically trusting in God. Like our pastor mentioned earlier, we are a Christian lifestyle center, and so this is one thing that we particularly like to safeguard. And, whether or not you realize it, there is a really big and substantial benefit to trusting in a higher power. What we've seen, especially during COVID, is that people who feel more isolated tend to also see negative impacts in the rest of their aspects of their lives, whether it's they don't feel as motivated to exercise or they don't feel as motivated to work. And so when you're trusting in a higher power, you have a sense of purpose. You have a sense of direction. And even when things go wrong, you don't feel like they will be horrible and they'll be so exhausting forever. There will be an end, and it does give you a sense of rejuvenated worth. And so what we encourage people to do is really trust not just in your own capabilities, because, sometimes we need a break, right? But also to trust in the capabilities of God, who never tires and who never has any sort of hindrance that he cannot overcome. And we have seen that there are studies that are related to positive physical and emotional states of well-being when there is a higher sense of religion or spirituality in an individual, such as, they're less likely to show as many depressive symptoms, they're less likely to get burdened down by stress and anxiety, and they're more likely to be able to bounce back during more emotionally or physically tiring times. So that is New Start, and like I said, if you ever want to find more information, you can find that on newstart.com. And if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask them towards the end. But what I am going to go ahead and do right now is move into the portion that I know you all came here for, and that is to watch the cooking demos. And the first demo that we have is going to be our crispy kale chips. So let me go ahead and introduce our cooks, our speakers here. We have Maria coming on up, and so I'm going to turn things over to her.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad you're all here. So why kale chips? I'm sure you guys are wondering, kale, a lot of times kids are like, gross, I don't like it, don't want to touch it. But this is an interesting way to have a nice little snack without it being full of chemicals and things that are not good for our kids and even ourselves. Sometimes, especially like we're inside a lot and, we want a snack. And a couple of benefits just to go over kale, if you didn't know. It's one of the most nutrient-dense foods. It has a bunch of vitamins and minerals, such as vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin C, B6, magnesium, calcium, copper, potassium, and magnesium. So especially with everything going on, I'm sure we can pack in a lot of beneficial nutrients and minerals. Kale is also loaded with antioxidants as well, with quercetin being one of them. Another thing is, as we mentioned, it's an excellent source of vitamin C. A lot of leafy greens are, and this has power packed in kale. And it also can help lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of heart disease. Again, with sometimes having limitations of going out and such, that's a very important thing to have in our diets to help reduce those problems. Kale is also one of the world's best sources of vitamin K, and that also helps the ability to bind calcium. So again, and also help critical blood clotting that is activating certain proteins, again, to bind calcium. There are also numerous cancer-fighting substances in kale. I encourage you to look into that as well. It's also loaded with beta-carotene, and as we mentioned, loaded with a bunch of minerals. And it also helps, and this is something, again, I know a lot of us do a lot of screen time since we're not outside sometimes, whether it's our phones or computers and things like that for work or such. It has nutrients that protect the eyes, so it's very important as well. And also can help with in losing weight. Again, with immobility sometimes, whether we're not well or such, that can also be very beneficial. So enough said, I'm going to call my two helpers, Luca and Jacob, please, if you can come. It's a very simple step to do. It's very easy. I think the toughest part with kale chips is basically washing it, really. You can buy it where it's in a bag where it's already cut and chopped for you, but I prefer to get the whole leaf only because you can manipulate getting this rough stalk off of it, because you really don't want to have this as part of your chip because it's too thick and too dense. So Luca and Jacob, if you want to just slowly show the process of taking the stalk off the kale, and then you can be chopping one on either side. So Jacob, if you want to go on this side, and Luca, you can go on that side, you can go ahead and do that. So basically, it's a very simple step process of de-leafing the kale. You can do it, I do it this way, it's just very easy. You could save the stalk for juicing if you wanted to, or for broth, or for composting. I mean, there's a lot of uses you can also have with that. But you see how it eliminates the stem off the middle? And then the guys are just gonna chop it up, just kind of like a chip size. And you wanna make sure after you thoroughly wash your kale that you really keep it dry, because if you leave a lot of water on it, when you put it in the oven, it'll wind up steaming, and you don't want it to steam because then it won't get crispy. So I usually use my salad spinner, if you have something like that, that draws the water out. That way you're not using a bunch of paper towels and such. That's very helpful as well. And then after that process of de-leafing the kale, it's just a matter of adding very simple ingredients. And, you know, you can make the kale chips your own. It doesn't have to be this specific recipe. I did 2 different kinds. You can make it your own depending on what you like, but it's just a very simple process. So you guys are just gonna chop some and then put it here. And basically all you really have to do is once you have your kale chopped and placed in your bin or your bowl, you can add a little bit of oil, not too much, because it really doesn't need much, because if you add too much oil, it winds up, again, not becoming as crispy as it can be. And you'll see once you have the samples from the back, it will just bring the kale down. And you don't want to, when you wash it, you don't want to wash it where it has a lot of salt in the water. I put some salt in the water because it kills any bugs that could be hiding in there. Because again, kale is a very fibrous and it's a very quirky kind of leaf. So things can kind of migrate in there and hide in there. So don't leave it in the salt too long because it will wilt the leaf, which can be beneficial if you're making a salad because it could be kind of rough and coarse, but with kale chips, you don't want to do that. So once you have them cut, and you put just about 2 tablespoons of oil, it could be olive oil, that's the oil I usually prefer because it's going to bake at a low heat. If it's a higher heat, you could use like a grapeseed oil. It has a better, it's not a carcinogen once it's baked or used in heat. But when you put the 2 tablespoons of oil, you basically are just gonna mix it evenly. And by mixing it evenly, you're gonna make sure that you don't have a glob of oil, and then when you put the seasoning on, you're not gonna have a bunch of seasoning on one portion. So I'm gonna have Jacob put some oil in there, about 2 tablespoons. And then when we have the rest, we'll do that. And so it's best to do it by hand, because when you do it by hand on like a spoon, you really get the oil incorporated on the leaves versus, you know, not on one spot and not evenly distributed. And then when you put the seasoning on, it's best to sprinkle it, maybe half of the seasoning on, and then mix it, and then the next part of the seasoning on. So that way it's not all incorporated on part of it and not the rest. Thank you. And so, Jacob, if you want to just show them with, you know, how to mix to make sure it's incorporated in there. So in this recipe, we use the spice called tahini. I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with that, but it's a seasoning that has basic ingredients in it. It's not full of chemicals and such, and it has a little bit of salt. It has some lime, dehydrated lime. It has sea salt, chili peppers, but it's not hot. It's just flavorful. And so there's no artificial colors or flavors. So we put a little bit of that in there if you want to add some, Luca. And then if you want to mix it a little bit. And that's basically it. The key when you're putting it in the cookie sheet, you want to make sure you don't have them too close together, because if you keep it very close together, it's going to steam. You want to give it space, room, where you cover the entire cookie sheet. You don't see any spots empty, but not on top of each other, because they won't get crispy. So about in the oven, 275 for about 20 to 30 minutes. Rotate them out, because not every oven cooks evenly, so they make sure that one isn't crispy and one's kind of halfway there. So after that, you could just let them cool and they're ready to eat. So it's a very easy, quick snack that you can make, and it's healthy for you. And since we're not going to bake this portion, we're just going to make it into a salad, which is another thing that kale can be made, as you probably know, into a very simple salad with similar seasonings. And you know, as I was making it for the kids a couple of weeks ago, we were actually preparing the kale, and some people were eating it before we even baked it. So it's actually a very good way of having it, because, like I said, sometimes when you see it in the rough, it's very coarse and very undesirable. But once it's seasoned and kind of put in a way that, you know, people are going to want to try it, they'll feel a little bit more favorable. Yes. Spice mix I actually got at Costco, but you can probably get it at any local store, any grocery store. Yeah, so it's pretty available. The other recipe I did was just with a little bit of smoked paprika, garlic powder, and onion powder, and some Himalayan salt, and a little bit of olive oil. Again, it's very simple. You can season it however you like. It's kind of like a salad, but it's just baking it. So anyone can be creative in what they want to put in it. Some people want it spicier or something like that. You can absolutely do that as well. All right, guys, I'm going to have you take these to the kitchen, and we'll move on to the mac and cheese. But it cooks for about 30 minutes, as mentioned before, and it's ready to eat. Yes, it comes in a head. Yes, out of this recipe, I want to say, this is 2 heads of kale. And there's different kinds of kale, too. Another one that I tried in the other recipe with paprika is purple kale. So there's different kinds. There's actually different textures. This is the most common one. I'm not sure of the name or the variety that this one is, but this is the most common one. But there are other varieties of it where it's a little bit coarser and the leaf is longer versus wider like this. But this one tends to be the one I choose to use, only because to me it seems like it's the way the leaf is, it'll give it a better way of staying crispy, versus the other leaf is a little bit flatter. Yes, I put them in Ziplocs. And one way you can cheat, too, you can take these to the kitchen, guys. Thank you. One thing you can do is put them in a Ziploc. I kind of cheated, and once I baked them, I left the Ziploc open and put it in the fridge so it can cool faster but not get soggy, because if I close it, obviously, if it's warm, it's going to steam, and then it's going to lose its crunchiness. So if you're in a hurry and you want to get it cooled down and close it down, you can do that. Any other questions? I've never tried freezing them, but you could try it. It is a vegetable and see, but the only thing I would worry about is freezer burn and the condensation factor. So it will probably make it wilt versus staying crispy.
Can you please repeat the questions for the live audience? So
They are not on the mic
Oh,
when
we
they
should
ask
have
the
had a
question.
mic.
That's okay.
So some people asked if you can freeze kale chips. So I wouldn't recommend it only because of the condensation factor, and you might have it wilt once that happens, from freezer burn possibly. And then the other question was, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what? The baby kale? Oh, I don't remember the purple kale. Yeah, the purple kale, it was just a different variety and stuff. So if you're looking for different kinds, you're more than welcome to try it. But the only reason why I use the most common one is because it tends to stay up away from the pan, and it gets it a little bit crispier. So, but you're more than welcome to try different kinds. Okay, so moving on, I guess we can move on to the mac and cheese if Gabby and Ashley can come up. This one's a little bit more. All right, this one's a little bit more labor intensive, but I don't know about you, most kids and adults like mac and cheese. And the nice thing is that it's vegan, so you don't have to worry about the after effects from dairy that can happen. The thing about this recipe, I have to say, that it does use a little bit of cashews. If someone doesn't like to use nuts, you could try the recipe without it, but the reason why it's in there, it kind of incorporates a little bit of fat and silkiness with the recipe, but you can certainly try it without it. And they are raw, so you don't want to use like a salted or roasted or anything like that, because it tends to blend better. So for the sake of time, the basic ingredients you could see from the list, you want to make sure that you use a basic box of macaroni. I believe that's like 16 ounces. I already have this cooked. And then it's going to require some vegetables that you will put in a pot with some water. And I usually fill the pot to more than halfway so it covers the vegetables because they will be cooking for a while. And I tend to use the water from that. So that way you can use it for two reasons, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But you're going to want to have a large potato. And I kind of tweaked this recipe from this. I wanted to give you the actual recipe that I tweaked it from, but just, again, like anything you learn here, you can always make it your own. So it's more the basis. So after using the macaroni, you want to take one potato and a carrot. I usually use about two. And then you want to take a large onion and boil that together in that pot of water. Once the vegetables are tender, you're going to be at a point where you could say, okay, I can make the sauce. And so I take the vegetables out, and I will start the macaroni in that water. But I'll also reserve some water, about 2 cups, because when I'm making the sauce, it kind of helps incorporate everything that's going to happen there. So obviously you'll add a little more water for the macaroni, but again, it's just adding flavor. If you're taking that water and dumping it out, you're throwing away all the nutrients from the vegetables and the flavor. So there's no point in that. So getting started on the sauce. So Gabby, you're going to do that. It's best if you have like a food processor or a blender, because it's going to help incorporate. You're going to do that last. You're going to help incorporate what we're going to put together here for the sauce, and that kind of really makes the mac and cheese what it is. So you're going to need to measure out 1/4 of a cup of cashews, and we're all going to put it in the food processor. So that's 1/4. And then you're going to put in some mustard. You're going to put in a teaspoon. Again, I kind of doctored this recipe a little bit myself, so I put in some mustard as well. That's good. And then you're going to put some sea salt. You put 2 tablespoons. Sorry, teaspoons. Use that. Okay, and then we're going to put some garlic in there. You can have, obviously raw garlic. I had got it from a bottle just to save time. And you're going to put in, I put in about 2 tablespoons just to start. I kind of like mine spicy. I don't know how everybody else likes theirs. But again, like anything else, this is more of the basic recipe, but you can make it so many different ways. You can add veggie meat to it. You can make it spicy. You can make it, there's so many ways where you see your typical mac and cheese that you would see in restaurants, how they doctor it up. You can do the same thing. You could just make it your own and, doctor it up that way in a healthy way. So then after that, you're going to need 1/4 of a cup of oil. And I use grapeseed oil because, again, it has a neutral flavor because you're already adding a lot of other flavors. So you don't really need to use the olive oil. I don't like to cook the olive oil if I don't have to. And the kale chips I did only because I used it kind of more, and it's not a long time that it's cooking. But with this, it has plenty of flavor, so we're fine. And then you're going to add some lemon juice. You can just squeeze some in there, just make sure the pits don't go in there. And the cayenne, I know people are like, oh no, why are we using cayenne? Cayenne's very good for you for blood circulation, has a lot of benefits, but it adds a little bit of spice, but surprisingly enough, it's not spice where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm on fire. It's just a little hint of something there. Okay, so that's 1/4. No, of a teaspoon. Yeah. And then the paprika is going to add the smokiness to it. I'll help you with that. There, that's good. And the paprika, this is one of my favorite go-to spices. It makes things smoky. I like the smoky kind versus just plain paprika because it gives it a nice flavor. And you could put one-fourth as well. I'll help you with that because I know it sticks. It's okay. Okay. All right. And again, I usually put a little bit more only because it's just me. So after the basic here is added, where did I put the lid? Sorry. You just hit on. I'll just let it. I just let it blend to the point where it's chopped pretty fine, and I'll check it. And I see a couple of pieces, so I'll let it go one more time. Okay, you can shut it off. All right, so now is the fun part. It's going to get messy. now we get the vegetables that we already cooked, the potato, the onion, and the carrot. And we add it to here. So you can just grab it with your hand, that's fine. And I added the 2 cups of liquid here already. You can break it up. You can break it up with your hand. Because it's so soft. And you get it to the point where it's soft. It's best to do this when it's already hot because obviously whenever you blend these things, it makes it a lot easier. But you can just put it in because it's soft enough. That's the onion. And then I put like a carrot and a half because they're about average sized carrots. And so you can cut that a little bit. So there you go. And then I will put the lid on. And then you can blend that. And you blend it again until it gets creamy. You're gonna add water. Now, as you can see, it kind of needs some help, so that's why I saved the water. So we'll add it from here. And I'm gonna have you hit the button and then on and off. So go ahead. Okay, stop. That potato's giving us a hard time, so we'll go in there. And we'll give it some help. Now, as you can see, the color is already looking like a cheddar. You can turn it back on. And then you check for consistency. Okay, so we're gonna leave that a little bit on a little bit longer. You can turn it back on. Just shut it off. All right, so after you get your consistency where it's kind of somewhat smooth, always check for flavor because again, not everyone likes things certain ways. Some people want less salt, some people want more, so you can try it from there. After that, do keep in mind this sauce can not only be for the mac and cheese, but you can make it for other things too. You can make it like a buffalo sauce if you want it for dips, chips, that kind of thing. You can warm it up, obviously, and it can be really nice too. You can have it cold, but again, it depends on what you like. So give it a try. It could be another thing that you can have as well, and not have to worry about cheese. So after that, we're going to have Ashley combine this here. So Gabby, I'm going to have you help her. So you're going to put the macaroni in the bowl. And then Gabby, you're going to put half that mixture in there for her. Oh, sorry. And then hold on to that because it will come loose. Hold on to the bottom first. Hold on to the base. There. Now hold on to that when you pour. Couple of things. The reason why I only add, this is just me, but I only add half of the sauce into the mixture is because I tend to like to put some of the sauce on the top. So when the crumb comes on, it's not so dry, kind of. So we'll do the crumb over here once the girls are done blending. But again, it's usually easier when the mac and cheese or the noodles are warm. I couldn't see why not. You can give it a try. I've never tried it before, but it, again, get creative. Why not? It's like a lot of times when I do a cream soup, I won't use dairy, and potato does add that factor of creaminess. The carrot gives it the color, and a little bit of the flavor. So you can pour about half of it in there, Gabby. You can pour more. Go ahead, keep going. Yeah, that's good. Again, this is usually not as thick. You can use your glove and just bring it back in. There you go. It's usually not as thick. It's usually a little bit more runny when it's warm because the potato, becomes a little bit starchier. Sorry. You're welcome. It gets a little thicker when it cools off, so it's best to do these things when it's warm. So while she's mixing that, I'm going to have you do the crumb, Gabby. All you have to do is get some breadcrumbs and a bowl. You're going to come over here. I use just a little bit of olive oil, some parsley, and a touch of salt, because a lot of times the breadcrumbs don't have any seasoning, so you're just adding a little bit of seasoning. And I like to use the pink salt because it has a lot of minerals. So you're just going to take your breadcrumbs. I like panko because it's really crunchy. And that's about 2 cups. And you're going to do this by hand. I like to do things by hand only because you incorporate things a little bit better. You're going to take some parsley. And this, again, I do by eye. I'm sorry. Here we go. Just take it in your hand. And you're going to put it together in your hands. Because it's too big when it's just whole. And then just some salt, just a pinch. And then some olive oil, about a tablespoon, just enough to incorporate everything. There we go. And then you're going to mix that. Yep. Then the last step, Ashley, you're going to pour that in the bowl in a second. Let's put this here. For Ashley, before you do that, you're going to spread the oil on the pan a little bit. Just a touch. You're going to bring it all the way around in there. So that's just greasing the pan because you want to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom. Okay, you're good there, Gabby. And you're going to help spread it with her. All right, so now you're going to pour that in here. Gabby, if you want to help with the spoon, maybe you should hold the bowl. Okay, then you just spread it all around. And Ashley, I'm going to have you pour the rest of the sauce on top. Before you do, just one sec. Okay. Here you go. You're going to help her with the spoon. And then Ashley, hold on to that knob so it doesn't, there you go. And you're going to spread it out with the spoon, Gabby. And that kind of helps it from not becoming too dry. Sometimes, between the baking process and such, and it kind of seeps in too, so it keeps it balanced. Okay, you can use the spoon and just get it up. There you go. All right, so you guys are going to spread the crumb on top. There you go, Ashley, thank you. Thank you, Gabby. And then I usually start from the corners because then it just fills the middle. So if you want to just outline the corners and then fill the middle, and that's basically it. Once everything has been incorporated, obviously when you start, preheat that oven so that way it's ready to go once you got everything on. And you could do it with your hands if that makes it easier, guys. Do it with your hands, yeah. And it bakes for about 30 minutes at 350, depending on your oven. It may be a little more, a little less. And that's basically it. And the kids love it. It's it's a nice basic meal you can have with a salad, like with a kale salad, and there you are. That's the mac and cheese. Does anybody have any questions? I haven't frozen it at this point, but I will prep everything except for the crumb on top. I'll leave that last. So if I do it like for Friday, I'll add the crumb maybe on Saturday and bake it. It's that kind of thing. So that way it doesn't get soggy. But that's usually what I'll do. Anything else? All right. That is a basic mac and cheese. Thank you. Yeah.
Now our next recipe is going to be done by Kevin. It's going to be a lentil roast. And so he's going to come on up here, and then we're going to take just a quick minute to make sure that his mic gets put onto him. We're very fancy like that. But just sit tight, and then we'll get into our next recipe.
Okay, when am I ready? Whenever I want to be?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, this is W on the first slides that you saw, water. You got to drink a lot of water. It's one of the main things. All right. Okay, so on the handout it says vegan baked lentil roast. Now, in the cookbook I took this from, it says British lentil loaf. So I don't know why they call it British lentil. Maybe the British like to eat a lot of lentils or something. But anyways, it's basically a recipe that from a book that we had a vegan restaurant in Oak Brook Terrace back from 1985 to 1995. And so this recipe is actually one of the things we used to serve at our restaurant. And I tend to, when I cook, I still tend to think sometimes I'm cooking for a restaurant. I always double recipes and triple recipes, and they ended up, well, it's a good way because you end up freezing stuff. But anyways, now lentils are an extremely nutritional product, and if I didn't erase it on my phone, let me see if I can find it real quick. I'm just going to read, oh, here. Okay, lentil, nutrition, benefits, and how to cook them. Okay. Now, now on the internet you can find all kinds of weird stuff because it says, is eating lentils dangerous? And if you click on it, it says, it tells you if you eat them raw. You know anybody who eats raw lentils? No. Okay. And there's lots of different kinds of lentils. The ones I use for this one are, brown lentils. But there's green lentils and yellow and red and beluga. Those are little tiny black lentils. And I think the main ones are green and brown, but you find a lot of red lentils, like, in Indian restaurants, Indians use red lentils, and Middle Eastern ones, people use yellow lentils a lot in their restaurants. And anyways, nutrition benefits, in 1 cup of cooked lentils, 230 calories, 39.9 grams of carbs, 17.9 grams of protein. 0.8 grams of fat, 15.6 grams of fiber. It's a lot. And then 18% of B6, 10% of niacin, you know, and then it goes on. 37% of iron that you need for the day, 17 zinc, and there's, you know, a bunch of more smaller minerals, okay? Now, you know, I like, you know, the previous presenter. What's your name again? Yeah, Maria. Okay, when I cook, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, I kind of just, I don't really, you know, measure stuff like, you know, I'm just going to dump this in there. It's supposed to be a cup of chopped walnuts, but this is what I had left at home, you know, so I'm going to just dump that in. And I actually made the finished products earlier this week, because this is like a two-step baking process, and you have to bake the stuff for an hour, and then you add, you know, your choice of topping. It says ketchup on the recipe. Okay, you can do whatever you want. You can, Trader Joe's has some very good organic barbecue sauces, and they're pretty cheap too. This whole bottle's like $2.69, and they got some sriracha barbecue sauce or Kansas City or whatever they are, but and then there's a yellow gold barbecue sauce, and they're all very good. But this, for this recipe, it calls for ketchup, and in the recipe book I got this from, there's actually a recipe to make your own ketchup, which we used to do in our restaurant. We made our own ketchup, see, and in almost everything in this recipe is organic. You know, I try to buy organic whenever I can, and I try never to use GMO products. Two of the biggest bad things to eat is anything that has GMO, okay, that's called genetically modified organisms, and also high fructose corn syrup. Very dangerous to eat, and there's a very good documentary on GMOs. I can tell you what it is. It's called Genetic Roulette. You should look it up and watch it sometime. It shows, you know, that it's a direct correlation to why there's so many food allergies and Crohn's disease and digestive disorders and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I guess I could talk about that for an hour, but it's a wonderful documentary. It's kind of chilling, actually, to watch. It's very scary, but very informative. But anyways, so these lentils, I cooked them already, you know, so the recipe says 1 3/4 cup dry lentils, about 4 cups cooked, so there's probably more than 4 cups in there, but I'm going to actually probably measure them out. We'll see how it works. Okay, and you pretty much follow the directions on the, you know, cooking the lentils. You put them in the pot, you cover them 3 inches above. You just follow the directions, and if there's extra liquid left, you can, you know, you can drain it, but save the liquid, because when you drain it, there's some heavy brown stuff on the bottom that you can add back to the recipe, which is, you know, some of the, you know, nutrition stuff in the lentils, and it actually has a lot of flavor. You put it back in. And, okay, so, no, that's no, that was 2 1/4 cups of chopped onions, but it kind of sank down. But anyways, that's actually 1.5 cups, but when we, oh, no, I know, okay. It was 2 1/2 cups of raw chopped onions, okay, so this is correct. So this is how much it made. You know, you just saute it, and this time I used olive oil. Sometimes olive oils are very, very strong in flavor, and they kind of can overtake the recipe. And plus, cooking in olive oil for a long length of time, the olive oil has a very, you know, high flash point or something, so it's actually better, you know, if you're going to cook and saute a bunch of stuff, it's actually better to cut the olive oil maybe with some coconut oil or some avocado oil. And avocado oil is very neutral, you know, very neutral tasting, and you can get a bottle like that big at Costco for like $15 or something, and it's very, very neutral tasting. But in this case, it doesn't call for that much, so I just use the, you know, the olive oil for this. And then the minced garlic, they also sell bags of, you know, garlic cloves. So I take some shortcuts at Costco. They're big bags for $9, and they're in the refrigerated section. So I'll cook like half a bag at a time. I saute them in a pan, you know, and then I add turmeric to them and cayenne pepper and salt. And the turmeric actually acts as a food preservative. Besides being so good for you, it's actually a food preservative too. And so if you cook up a batch of that, it lasts for a month in the refrigerator, you see. So then it's cheap and easy. So then I just took the cloves. These are raw cloves, okay? But I took the cooked ones out, and then they're easy to cut because they're real nice and soft, you know. And then you just dump them in with the onions and saute them just a little bit more. Or Trader Joe's sells these frozen garlic cubes. They're like $2 for, you know, you can just pop a couple out. The taste is a little, you know, they're mixed with oil and stuff, so they're a little, you know, they don't, but they're fine to use in a pinch. All right, another ingredient is soy milk. This isn't soy milk, this is oat milk. Actually, it's almond milk and oat milk mixed because I just dumped some almond milk to make sure I had enough, so I mixed them together. And then there's also macadamia. And at Costco, you can get 3 half-gallons of organic almond milk for $9. Okay, and that Trader, you know, you can get them anywhere, but. And then there's oat milk product at Costco. This is very good. And they also have a macadamia milk now, too. And they're all very good, and you can mix and match them together, whatever you want. But and people sometimes say, well, cooking organic is expensive. Well, you know what? It's really not if you kind of know what you're doing. Like these lentils, you can get them in bulk at Costco, or I mean at Whole Foods. The bulk section, it's pretty reasonable, you know, for organic. And, you know, Whole Foods, their prices, if you know what to shop for there, if you buy the name, the 365 brand at Costco, if you buy all their organic cereals and, you know, their, you know, milks or ice cream, I shouldn't maybe talk about ice cream here, but I admit I eat ice cream sometimes. But anyways, you know, if you buy the 365 brand, their pastas, very reasonable. Or you go to Jewel and you buy their O brand. So you got their O brand of organics, and it's all very reasonable, so. And Trader Joe's has some nice products, so. All right, anyways, let me move this along here. All right, organic tomato sauce. It says tomato puree. Tomato sauce and puree is kind of like the same thing, so. All right. Yeah, Costco. Whole wheat flour. I don't know where I got this from, probably from Whole Foods. Pink Himalayan sea salt. Okay, there's extra minerals in there, supposedly. So, is there? Okay. Non-GMO onion granules, onion powder from Costco. They got organic stuff too. Spray, avocado spray, okay. Normally I would do like Maria did. I would just dump the oil and push it around my fingers and stuff. But okay, now Trader Joe's, for people who are lazy, they already got chopped baking pieces of walnuts, you see, so that's one of the ingredients. And then the sage, now this is wild sage, you see. This is from South Dakota. We were on a long road trip this summer, and it was wonderful to go, you know, travel around. Hardly anybody was traveling. It was beautiful. So we picked all this wild sage, and this, I don't know if this is the stuff we got from South Dakota, but you could pick it, and while you're walking around, you eat it and stuff. But so we're just going to rub some of that and break some of that up. Okay, so that's all the ingredients that need to go in here, okay. Now here's what, the consistency kind of varies once in a while on this, okay, but here's what the finished product looks like. See, when I'm done, you know, putting it in this pan, it's not gonna have the topping. See, in this case, I just use ketchup, okay. Now personally, I like it better with this Trader Joe's organic barbecue sauce, okay. And it's even really good too with like sriracha barbecue sauce. Okay, so you can do whatever you want. Sometimes I do half and half. I'll make half ketchup and half barbecue sauce. So you just, you know, you figure it out. Or you can shake some cayenne and mix it in with the lentils. But in this case, we didn't do any of that, see. But that's how it looks. And the consistency, you know, it'll sort of come out in chunks, see. You know, but it's very nice. All right, anyways, so, oh yeah, okay. All right, so, anyways, well, I'm taking this one home with me anyways, so nobody, I'm not gonna touch nothing. All right, so here, 4 cups of lentils. measure them out pretty good anyways. 2, 3, 4, okay. Now, see, I got lentils left over. I can, throw a little, make them soup, or if I was at home, I would just dump them in here and, add other stuff to it. All right, so there's that. But we're going to try to keep it fairly accurate here. All right, here's the onions and the garlic. Okay, just sauteed already. Just dump them right in there. Okay. All right, what else? Oh yeah, the oat milk, okay. Says soy milk, half a cup. All right, so here's the 1 cup container, so we'll just, yeah, it's close enough. All right, it's good enough. All right, here's another, okay, celery and green peppers. Okay, sometimes green peppers can kind of overtake a recipe, they're kind of like very strong. Okay, in this recipe, they actually work very good. But again, sometimes I use what I had on hand, and at Trader Joe's, they sell bags of frozen chopped peppers, okay? And they're green, red, and yellow all mixed together. So that's what this is. This is just the green, yellow, and red chopped peppers mixed together. So we'll dump them in there, and the celery is also in there. Those do not need to be cooked ahead of time. All right, so then let's see here. Whole wheat flour. I suppose if you're trying to be, if you're trying to do gluten stuff like that, you can probably, put a different kind of flour in. I suppose I never tried it before, but I'm sure you could. And let's see. Well, we don't have it. Yeah, we'll just dump enough in there. I don't know. That's probably about a 1/4 cup. I think the whole thing was close enough. Okay. All right. And what else? Oh, yeah. Okay. Tomato puree, 1½ cups. This is like 15 ounces, so what's that? That's like 2 cups, basically. So, yeah, if I was at home, I would just be dumping all this stuff together. I'd have poured the lentils, I'd have poured everything together, and because that's how it is sometimes. If you're a little short on this, if you're a little short on that, it still works out fine, But in this case, we'll dump, what does it say? 1½, all right, so, all right, and the rest will go in the lentils. There you go, okay. All right, onion powder. I like granulated onion better because onion powder kind of goes all over the place. If you're, trying to make stuff, it starts flying around, so. Okay. 1 tablespoon, so, all right. Oops, that's only a teaspoon. How many teaspoons in a tablespoon? 3, right? 2. All right. Okay, that's it. Boy, who planned that out? Okay. All right. Salt, pink Himalayan sea salt. Now, supposedly, like I said, it's got all these extra things, but we'll see. 2 teaspoons. Okay. Now, personally, I like extra salt, but I won't do it here. I love salt. Only the good kind. It's good for you. All right, chopped walnuts. They're, they're still a little kind of big, but they'll do. They're just, all right, 1 cup chopped walnuts. It's close enough, 1 cup. Hey, there you go. All right, what else? Is that it? Onion powder, walnuts, salt, sage. Oh, the sage, okay. Now the sage, this is very nice. I don't want to put these stems in here. And you can use the sage in the bottle too. You can just buy this stuff, in the bottle. But this is from South Dakota. probably Custer State Park or somewhere like that, where it grows wild. Ooh, smells good too. It's good to just eat just like that. All right, we'll just dump a little extra in there. Okay, beautiful. All right, the stems, we will leave those out. All right, mix it all together. Okay, all right, just mix it up good. All right. Oh yeah, it looks good enough to eat. You could actually eat this just like this, you know. Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's that. Okay. Now, like I say, I usually, just dump stuff in there, and the recipes usually turn out too big, so I brought an extra pan. So. All right. So, here's a bad thing about cooking spray. It tends to overspray the pans, so you gotta, then you gotta wipe up a mess, so I'll spray a little in there. It's better, it's actually way cheaper just to take the bottle of oil and dump them in there. Okay. Wipe it in there real good. All right. Technically, this pan is probably too big too. See, this is like the official pan. It calls for in the recipe. This 8 by 8, about that height. So this is 8 by 8, but it's too tall, so we're gonna not fill it up as much. All right. And then that'll be for the overflow. We don't want to let this good sage go to waste. There we go. All right. Whoopsie. That's about right there. So you fill it up about that much, just like that. Dump the rest in the other one. Okay. Yeah. See, it's nice to make a little extra too, because now I got a little pan I can give to somebody or something, Like I can give it to my sister, because my sister gives me nice food sometimes, so every once in a while I got to give her something. So usually she gives me cookies and stuff, which, although my sister, she's a pretty healthy cook now. She's getting there. She really is. All right, so that's that. Okay, now what you do is you bake these in the oven for about an hour at 350. Okay, and then after they're done, like I'm saying, the consistency is kind of inconsistent. Okay, so it might, scoop out real nice, or it might, like these are pretty good today. And I froze this one. These have been frozen for 5 days, the one that we're sampling out. So it might be a little soupier than usual, but it's fine. So then after you're done baking it for about an hour or so, then you take whatever you want, whichever thing, and you're supposed to measure it out to a cup, but you can do that. That's great actually if you measure it. But you just put it all over the top or dump it all over the top, and I tend to like a little more sauce than not on stuff, anything I eat basically. So there you go. So you bake these up for an hour, then you put them back in, dump the stuff on, put them in for another 15 or 20 minutes, and you're done. Just let them sit for a little while so they set up just a little bit. All right. Yeah, we used to have a good time at our restaurant. Can you imagine? We had chefs and people, they told me what to do. I actually went to New York City for 6 months for vegan chef training. This is when there was like 30 of these restaurants around the world called Country Life vegan restaurants. So we learned a lot of stuff. It was really, really wonderful. So, all right, any questions, anybody? All right. Beautiful.
Excellent.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. This looks great. And don't worry, we'll be able to enjoy some samples in a bit. But thank you, Kevin. So our lentil roast, that was our lentil roast. And in case you are wondering, the book that Kevin said this recipe is from is called Country Life Cookbook. Is that correct? Yeah, the Country Life Cookbook. I know there's not that many on Amazon, but you can still give a Google search or whirl and see if you can find one if you're interested. And next up, we'll have Veronica, and Enoch and Ezekiel are going to be helping her. So just sit tight for a few more minutes while we transition between recipes, and then we'll go on to our next two recipes for today. Thank you.
Okay. Pretty much every week on Sabbath mornings, I like to make oatmeal because it fills us up and it holds us down for the whole sermon and waiting for lunch and everything. So I usually make a big pot, enough, to feed the four of us at home. And I usually have leftover oatmeal. And I'm always wondering, I know, leftover oatmeal, that sounds really strange, but I usually make a big pot, and whatever's left over, I always wonder, okay, what can I make with it? I feel bad throwing it out. No one likes to eat it the day after. So one day I was looking at recipes, and I found a leftover oatmeal recipe. So I made these cookies one day, and I told the boys and my husband, I said, here, have a cookie. And they were like, what's this? So I told them it's leftover oatmeal cookies. And as soon as they tried it, it was a hit, and we haven't gone back ever since. So now I purposely make extra oatmeal just so I have the leftover oatmeal for us. And the good thing is that we're going to be going camping soon, and this makes a really good snack in the breakfast for the morning breakfast, a breakfast snack or something. Instead of granola bars or something, now you have your own a quick, hefty oatmeal snack. So we're going to get started here with. We need 2 bowls, one for the dry ingredients and one for the wet ingredients. So for the dry right now, can you give me 2 cups of flour? And of course, one boy can't help, it has to be both. So I have my 2 sons of thunder over here. Enoch, come over here for a second. You're going to help me with the wet ingredients. So while we get the dry ingredients, we're going to put together the 2 cups of flour. We're going to get, there are 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then what I like to do, since we don't eat eggs in our home, this has an egg, 2 eggs on here. So what I do, I use egg replacement. And what I use is flaxseed or chia seeds. So if you to make 1 egg, you use 1 tablespoon of chia seeds and about 2 tablespoons of water. Let it sit for about 15 minutes or so, and it'll thicken up, and that'll become your binding agent for whatever you want to make, cakes, cookies, any kind of baking that you do. You can use the chia and the flax seeds, and both of them are very rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Is that what it is? Fatty acids? Good source of vitamins and minerals. Just 1 tablespoon of flaxseed contains 37 calories and 1.3 grams of protein. So if you're looking for some extra protein, you can also use chia seeds and flax seeds for that extra protein that you're missing, especially with a vegan diet. Everyone's like, oh, how do you get your protein? There's so many ways. You just have to investigate. And I have found that, a lot of legumes and beans and now I've come to realize that chia seeds and the flax seeds also contain a lot of protein for us. So over here, I already had some of it kind of soaking up in there, so you can see that it's, pretty thick. And then the flaxseed as well is thickening up as well, and that'll be our binding agent right there. So can you put 2 teaspoons? So here's a half a teaspoon. here's a half a teaspoon, here's your teaspoon of baking powder, and then we're going to do our cinnamon. And our salt is right here. Now what we're going to do is get our, I didn't bring the butter, did I? I didn't bring my butter. Okay, so I forgot the butter. I guess I can't make the cookies, but I can mix everything in here just so you can see what it looks like, and then I'll add the butter when I get home. I guess I can't make this here. I forgot the butter. Okay, so what you can do is pour this in this bowl. What I usually start with is we put the butter in there with the sugar, you mix it, and then it starts to lighten up and get fluffy, so that'll be the start of your cookies for the wet ingredients. The butter should be softened just so that it's easier to blend. Then first you put the butter and the sugar, and then once that's all blended up, you add your eggs or egg replacement to the bowl. Make sure that all of that is combined together as well. Once all of that is combined, you can add your oatmeal, whatever left over. For this recipe, that'll make about 20 to 30 cookies, depending on how big you want your cookies. For this one, it'll make about 20. Put 2 cups of your leftover oatmeal in your wet ingredients. Make sure all of that is combined together. Then once all the wet ingredients are combined, you're going to want to put, it's up to you. You can either put the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients or the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. This recipe is very forgiving. One time I said, I know how to do this off the top of my head, and I just threw everything in. I'm like, there's a process to it. Usually for baking, there's a science, and it's got to be precise. This one is very forgiving. I threw everything together, and they still came out delicious and fluffy and pretty good. So whichever one you want to do is totally fine. And also to the wet ingredients, you got to put, you don't have to, but it tastes good, about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I like to cut a fresh lemon and just squeeze the juice in there. And then you can add, since the oatmeal, depending on how you make it, I like to add syrup or honey. I also add a little bit of sugar in there just to sweeten it up for the boys. Since it's already sweet, you can pretty much play with how sweet you want them as a cookie. This recipe calls for, it says, where's the sugar? Half a cup. I have done half a cup or even a little less just because our oatmeal is already pretty sweet in itself, even with the fresh fruits in there. So you can play with the sweetness depending on your taste. So you put your half a cup of sugar in there, and once all of that is all mixed up and put together, in the kitchen, I have some cookies on the window there, if you can bring the tray of the cookies, sorry. Yeah, I just feel bad that I forgot the butter of all the things, otherwise I would show this all to you. So once you blend all of that, not blend it, you mix it together, it's gonna get really hard to mix with the hand mixer. So once you get that flour in there, you can start folding it in with a spoon, or you can even use your hands, because if it's fresh, it'll get sticky on your hands. But if you let the oatmeal cool down a little bit, it won't feel so sticky on your hands. So you can mix it pretty good with your hands or the spoon. And then when you're gonna put it on your cookie tray, put your parchment paper on your tray, you can either put them in little balls so that it's easy for kids to just grab and go, or you can make them into more flattened cookie size. You can make it as big as you want, as little as you'd like. Here, let me just grab this one cookie here. So I grabbed like 1/4 of a cup of batter, and I put this on the cooking sheet, and I just flattened it out with a spoon. And the good thing is that these cookies, not like chocolate chip cookies, tend to like rise and then they flatten out. These cookies, whatever shape you leave them on the pan, that's how they're gonna bake. So it's up to you how fun you wanna make it for your kids. bite-sized little mini balls or nuggets or just flat big pancakes even. That's how they'll cook. And you can even add extra dried fruits in there while you're mixing your oatmeal with the wet ingredients. You can add, we sometimes add extra cranberries, dried cranberries, pecans. For the sake of allergies, I know I left out the pecans, and I used, what did I use? I had used a soy-free butter as well. And all of this you can find in all of your grocery stores now. A lot of vegan options are available almost in every store. I cannot believe it's not butter. The vegan one tastes really good. They also sell the sticks of butter, so everything has come so easy now. Do you guys like these cookies?
I really like them.
Do you like these cookies?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So yeah, they're pretty much a fan favorite in our home, and they're not that sweet. They're not, they're sweet enough to please their palates, which is what I'm happy about.
Comment. It's so good that we literally finished a whole batch of cookies.
Yeah. So yeah, the recipe that I'm handing out to you guys is for about 20 cookies, depending on how big you want to make them and how small you want to make them. So are there any questions? I know we're short on time, so I kind of cut this short. Thankfully, I forgot the butter, I guess. But is there any questions about anything here? The process or anything? I wish I could incorporate more, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just throw everything in there, and it's easy to go. And the kids like to come in here and measure and mix and do everything. So it's a really, really fun recipe to make, especially with the boys, because it's something that they like to eat, something that they like to do, and it's easy for him to even just do it by himself if he wants to. I mean, the measurements are really easy, and I like to add in math. Sometimes I'll say how many. If I want to make it into a bigger recipe, we kind of try to put math in there, and what's half a teaspoon and half a teaspoon. And so I like to incorporate education as well as the baking. So it's fun, and hopefully if you have nieces and nephews or grandkids or any other family members, that you can all join in and bake it, and it'll be good for you and filling as well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Veronica. Oh, thank you, Enoch and Ezekiel. So those were our leftover cookies, and now we have our final recipe, number 5. And Reness is going to come up here and show us how she's going to make her vegan sugar cookies.
Okay, let's see. All right, hello everyone. Today, our recipe for today will be vegan cinnamon sugar-coated cookies. These cookies have only 6 ingredients, and they're easy to make and fun, delicious to taste. So we have 2 cups of almond flour, this one right here. So I'm going to use this and put it here. Then we're going to have 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I like using date and coconut sugar. They're healthier, so there you go. Then 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, ground cinnamon. All of these are organic ingredients. And then 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Oops. And then 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. After we put all these ingredients, we will be mixing them. We will combine all the ingredients and whisk till there are no clumps, so we can have a smooth texture. Okay, so we want to mix them all together thoroughly because we don't want half of the cookie to be salty, half of the one to have no taste at all. So we want to mix them together. And then after you've done that, we will add 1/4 cup of warm water. Okay, and then we will mix them again. We will add the warm water and stir right now. until it's like a dough. It's supposed to have like a Play-Doh texture, even though it's not exactly tasting like Play-Doh, obviously. And so we'll mix until it has that texture. All right. And as I said, all of these ingredients are organic for a healthier purpose. All right, so next, still here a little bit. So we want to mix until all the flour is basically in the mixture. So after we've done that, we're going to go ahead and make balls using a scooper and place them on parchment paper on top of a baking pan. So the parchment paper is unbleached and totally chlorine free. So with the scooper, we're gonna take them, these cookies, and put them right here and flat them up until they make a cookie shape. So I'm just gonna do a few of these, not the whole thing. Okay. And smooth them down. And so after you fill the whole pan with them, you will put cinnamon sugar coating. And this is optional if you don't want to. It will contain 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/4 brown white sugar. I like using date sugar though. So once you have this, you'll take this and put some in here. Let's see if we can put some in here. And then we will sprinkle them on top of the cookies to give them like a sugar coating. And then we will put them in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. And after we've done that, we will preheat the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake them for 15 minutes or until just lightly golden. And then you will enjoy. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ernest. These look fantastic. All right, so these were all of the recipes that we have. We hope that you'll be able to take them home, enjoy them with your friends, with your families, or if you just want to keep it to yourself, we're okay with that too. Now, we do have a couple of reminders or announcements as well. You may or may not be wondering where on earth did we get all of these fantastic kids from. We do have a group here at this church called Pathfinders, and Ruben is going to come on up, and we also have a quick video for you so that you understand a little bit more about the life skills that we're teaching the children and how they got into this skill set particularly.
Hi, my name is Ruben Amaro. I'm the director for Pathfinder Club here. And just want to say that pleasantly surprised about the involvement that Pathfinders had today in the cooking class. And that is one of the messages that we definitely instill in kids, that nutrition, exercise, and all around good health is part of the design from the beginning. So that is one of the things that we definitely teach and encourage. And we ourselves as adults have to set the example. That is the reason why you saw some of the experts here that cook some of these great foods that we cannot wait to taste. And in light of that, we'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we do as a club. So we'll introduce a video about the Pathfinders here at our church.
200 years ago, when groups of settlers wanted to move into an uncharted region of the American continent, they hired a guide to take them. Someone who could show them the way through dangerous mountain passes, to lead them across raging rivers, to defend and protect them against wild animals. These guides were known as Pathfinders. They were the ones out in front, ahead of the party, leading the way. While the country today is not the uncharted and wild frontier it was centuries ago, the journey that awaits our current young people can sometimes seem just as challenging. They often must navigate through a jungle of academics, busy schedules, and most of all, peer pressure. And during these critical years, boys and girls begin to form their own values and worldviews that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. Here, at the Elmhurst Seventh-day Adventist Church, we believe the best way for a child to survive this enormous wilderness of life is for them to follow the great Pathfinder guide, Jesus Christ. The Pathfinder Club is a worldwide organization sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, though young people ages 10 to 15 of any religious persuasion are welcome. Here, in the city of Elmhurst, Illinois, stands the Elmhurst Sentinels Pathfinder Club. Equipped with trained volunteers, many who are parents themselves, our club offers its members a wide range of engaging activities that help build a young person's intellectual, physical, and spiritual foundation. Our Pathfinder Club regularly meets 2 to 3 times monthly, during which members get to physically meet with one another, engage in social interaction, study valuable spiritual lessons from the Bible, acquire a sense of responsibility and discipline, and learn practical life skills and hobbies. While a healthy mind is key for a child's development, a healthy body is just as crucial. Pathfinders enrolled in the club will learn the importance of building healthy habits such as staying physically active and getting proper nutrition. They will also spend a great deal of time outdoors in nature as they participate in activities such as camping and hiking. During these outings, Pathfinders will become familiar with survival skills that cannot be learned at home, ranging from fire building to orienteering. As Pathfinders acquire knowledge, learn valuable skills, and make lasting memories, we encourage them to also put these in good use by serving the community. All members will regularly assist in various forms of volunteer service and civic engagement, such as food drives and showing appreciation to our community leaders. But most importantly, in all of our engagements, we strive to share the light of Jesus and the hope of his soon return to everyone we meet. We are Pathfinder Strong.
Thank you. Thank you to Sharina and Anna for letting us be part of this cooking class. And any information that you may have for children you may have in your family, see us. We're always willing to welcome new members, that we continue to prepare these kids for what the upcoming life as young adults and eventually adults. So thank you for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben, and thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you everyone for helping as well. We always enjoy our online audience too. Thank you from far away or wherever you're tuning in from. Just a last reminder for our next series, which is going to be on April 11th. That's also a Sunday. We will be having Dr. Manuel Alva do an entire weekend of health series. So we encourage you to come on by. There will also be an online streaming of those videos too. And if you want to grab a flyer on your way out, they are on the corner of this table here. And for those of you who are tuning in online, or if anyone in general has any questions, please feel free to contact us here at the Elmhurst Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we'll be able to help you out. Are there any final questions? All right, well, I'm going to invite Ezekiel to come on up here, and he has a quick note about the recipe they made about their cookies, and then he's going to do a really quick closing prayer for us. There you go.
So, once you make the cookies, once they're all done, set the oven to 350 and then let them bake for 20 minutes. Okay. Right. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you that we could learn about you, and that we could also learn about being healthy and living pure lives for you. We thank you for everybody that has volunteered to come here and do something, do a recipe so that we can learn to be healthy and to also learn to just be close to you. Thank you for everything that you've always done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Don't forget to grab a sample on your way out and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.